do you do when everything falls apart? Lamentations gives voice to grief, loss, and heartbreak. It is a book born out of devastation, yet it refuses to end in despair. In this video, we'll explore Lamentations and see how sorrow, honesty, and faith can exist together, even in the aftermath of ruin. Overview. Lamentations is a poetic response to one of the darkest moments in Israel's history, the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BCE. Traditionally attributed to the prophet Jeremiah, the book consists of 5 poems that mourn the fall of the city, the suffering of its people, and the consequences of disobedience. Each chapter takes the form of a lament, expressing pain, confusion, and grief. The poetry is raw and emotional, describing starvation, exile, humiliation, and loss. Yet Lamentations is not simply an expression of sorrow. It is also a theological reflection on justice, responsibility, and hope. The structure of the book is intentional. Several chapters use acrostic poetry, following the Hebrew alphabet, suggesting that grief is being expressed fully, from beginning to end. In the center of the book, chapter 3 shifts the tone. Amid the devastation, the author pauses to affirm that God's mercy has not vanished and that hope remains possible. Lamentations teaches that grief is not a sign of weak faith. Instead, it shows that honest lament can coexist with trust. The book invites readers to acknowledge pain fully while still holding on to hope. Historical and social setting. The book is set immediately after Jerusalem's destruction by the Babylonian army. The city was burned, the temple destroyed, and much of the population exiled. The trauma was national, cultural, and spiritual. For ancient Israel, the fall of Jerusalem represented more than political defeat. It felt like the collapse of identity, security, and divine favor. Lamentations reflects the shock and confusion of a people grappling with loss and trying to understand how such devastation could happen. In this context, the book served as a communal expression of mourning. It allowed the people to grieve collectively, remember what was lost, and reflect on the moral and spiritual failures that contributed to their downfall. Key themes in Lamentations. Grief and lament. The book validates sorrow and suffering, showing that grief has a rightful place in spiritual life. Judgment and responsibility. The suffering is acknowledged as the consequence of collective disobedience, emphasizing accountability. Compassion and mercy. Even in devastation, God's compassion is remembered and affirmed. Hope in the midst of despair. The central chapter highlights the enduring possibility of renewal. Justice and reflection. Lamentations invites honest reflection on actions, consequences, and moral responsibility. Faithful endurance. The book models perseverance through suffering rather than denial or despair. Communal healing. Grief is expressed not privately alone, but collectively, fostering shared healing. Key verses in Lamentations. Lamentations 1 verse 12, a cry for recognition of suffering. Lamentations 3 verses 22 to 23, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, his mercies never come to an end. Lamentations 3 verses 31 to 33, God does not willingly bring affliction. Lamentations 3 verse 40, let us examine our ways and return to the Lord. Lamentations 5 verse 21, a plea for restoration and renewal. Relevance Today. Lamentations speaks powerfully to modern experiences of loss, trauma, and grief. Whether through personal hardship, community tragedy, or global crisis, people today still wrestle with pain that feels overwhelming and unjust. This book shows that grief does not need to be hidden or rushed. It also offers a framework for processing suffering honestly. Lamentations does not minimize pain, but it refuses to surrender to hopelessness. In a culture that often avoids discomfort or demands quick recovery, this book teaches patience, reflection, and emotional truth. Spiritually, Lamentations reminds readers that faith includes lament. Trust is not the absence of sorrow, but the willingness to bring sorrow into conversation with God. This message is deeply relevant for anyone struggling to reconcile faith with suffering. Closing thought. Lamentations is a quiet, powerful reminder that grief is not the end of the story. It gives language to pain while pointing gently toward hope. The book teaches us that it is possible to mourn honestly, reflect responsibly, and still believe in renewal. Its enduring lesson is that hope often begins in honesty. By naming loss, acknowledging responsibility, and remembering compassion, Lamentations guides us toward healing. In moments when life feels shattered and answers are unclear, this book reminds us that faith can survive sorrow, and that even in ruins, mercy can still be found.